company's been cutting costs for years to keep the margins up, and maybe they shouldn't have done that. Maybe they should have spent more time investing in the company overall. And it's not.
When the stock of Kraft Heinz plummeted in February 2019, consumers around the world were shocked. The two brands had been powerhouses on their own, and everyone expected them to be much more powerful together. However, things haven't been working out so well. Today we're going to talk about the rise and fall of Kraft Heinz. Keep watching until the end to figure out how it all went wrong. This is Fraud Explained. To enjoy more videos, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell, or else I'll be looking into you too. Let's be honest, nobody expected Kraft Heinz to fall. Heinz proposed to merge with Kraft with the promise of making the company the number 5 global food and beverage company in the world. Together, they would have a combined $29.1 billion revenue, putting them right behind snack food giant Mondelez. Mondelez and Kraft actually used to be one and the same, but the two brands split in 2012, with Kraft keeping the products that weren't doing too well at that time. To split from Mondelez actually made Kraft a pretty attractive partner, and Warren Buffett, a legendary investor who grew Berkshire Hathaway to the 7th largest company in the world as of 2019, and Jorg Paulo Lemann, 3G Capital's director and Brazil's richest man, saw the potential. That is why they decided to invest their money into the brand and help it reestablish itself in the world of food production. Let's dive a bit into the history of the two brands to get an idea of who they were prior to the merger. First up is Heinz. You probably know Heinz for its offers of a wide variety of sauces and condiments, the most popular one being their tasty tomato ketchup. But did you know that there was a time that the brand went bankrupt? Heinz was founded by and is named after Henry J. Heinz, who was born in the United States to German immigrants. Henry Heinz began as a foodstuffs packer at Sharpsburg, Pennsylvania in 1869. At that time, he was experimenting with condiments that could be marketed, and with the help of his friend L. Clarence Noble, Heinz Noble and Company was born. Their first offer to the public? Horseradish. He had gotten the recipe from his mother, Anna Heinz, and was producing it in large quantities in the basement of his father's former house. Sadly, the company went bankrupt in 1875. Many people were not too fond of condiments yet back then. But that did not deter the young Henry Heinz. After the dust settled, he set his sights on founding another company, which he ended up doing the next year. This time it was called F&J Heinz, which he founded with his brother John Heinz and his cousin Frederick Heinz. It was during this era of the Heinz company that their world-famous Heinz tomato ketchup was born. The company continued to experience tremendous growth. Years later, in 1888, Henry Heinz bought out his two partners and gave the company a makeover as the H.J. Heinz Company, which was the company's last stop before its merger with Kraft Foods. Speaking of Kraft Foods, this favorite household brand had pretty humble beginnings and was able to find its fortune in one product: cheese. Canadian James L. Kraft immigrated to the United States in 1903. He decided to do wholesale door-to-door cheese business in Chicago, where he would load up a cart with various cheeses and ride from neighborhood to neighborhood selling cheese. The first year of Kraft's business did not go so well. Kraft lost $3,000, all around the equivalent of $90,000 today, and a horse. However, he persisted. Pretty soon, business began taking off. Kraft was eventually joined by his brother in the United States, and together they formed the Jane L. Crafts and Brothers Company in 1909. By 1912, the company was preparing to expand itself internationally. It established a headquarters in New York City, New York. By that time, Kraft was able to offer 31 different kinds of cheeses all over the United States. However, in 1915, Kraft was able to release a product that was a true game changer: a pasteurized processed cheese that did not need to be refrigerated. It had a much longer shelf life than fresh cheese, and was just as delicious. They patented the product in 1916, and during World War I, roughly 6 million pounds of the cheese were sold to the US Army for military rations. Fast forward to decades later, the brands Kraft and Heinz had made their way into households all over the world, and were able to cement their products on our family's grocery shopping list. I remember asking whoever was headed to the shops to buy me boxes of Kraft macaroni and cheese, one of my favorite afternoon snacks. I also loved having Heinz tomato ketchup with fries. Now, with origin stories like that, it's no wonder that people were expecting, even rooting, for the Kraft Heinz merger to go well. Remember when I said earlier in this video that Kraft split with Mondelez? Well, that paved the way for the merger with Heinz, and it looked so promising that Warren Buffett and George Paula Lehman decided to back it up. When the announcement came out, people were excited for what the two would be able to come up with together. However, it didn't turn out so great. Keep watching until the end to find out what happened. In 2015, the members of the boards of both Kraft Foods and H.J. Heinz agreed to merge the two companies to form one big parent company, Kraft Heinz. The new Kraft Heinz company then became the world's fifth largest food and beverage company, and the third largest in the United States. They had offices in countries all over the world. The merger was successfully completed on July 2, 2015. Things seemed to be looking up for the brand as it had a whole new set of proposed acquisitions. However, these days, things haven't been looking so bright for the company. For starters, the brand's sales and profits have experienced a decline. It took a $15.4 billion write-down in February and reduced the value of its assets by another $1.22 billion the month after. That means that the brands that the public once knew and loved were no longer as valuable as they had been prior to the merger. Rumors of mishandled funds began to circulate and prompted securities regulators to check on the brand's finances. What they uncovered was devastating. There was proof of employee misconduct. Kraft Heinz announced that it would reinstate its financials for 2016 and 2017, which resulted in numerous lawsuits. Trust in the brand began to diminish, and thousands of its employees were laid off. The Kraft Heinz stock plummeted by roughly 51% in 2019, and it has been quite costly for all the investors involved. Just how did it come to this? Keep watching until the end to find out. Bernardo Reis, a Brazilian economist, had become the chief executive of Kraft Heinz and had announced that the two companies' merger would save them a great deal of money, around $1.5 billion in annual cost cuts. Those who worked at the company were required to gather information related to finances and submit what they were able to compile to the higher-ups. That became the basis of the cost-cutting method, and the company sought to reduce costs in every area it possibly could. However, after the string of fiascos that the company had faced, Bernardo Reis stepped down. But wait, isn't cost-cutting supposed to be beneficial for companies? What gives? Some experts have taken to analyzing the cause of Kraft Heinz's decline and have found that its use of the zero-based budgeting strategy has caused the brand more harm than good. It seems that in an effort to cut costs and save money, Kraft Heinz has forgotten to do one important thing: create products for its consumers to buy. Over the years, smaller companies have been sprouting up all over the world in an effort to dive into the highly competitive food market, and instead of stepping up their game in response to new competition, Kraft Heinz seemed to stagnate. Cost-cutting is not really a bad thing. It's actually good to look for things you can save on. However, if you're a food brand dealing with a highly competitive market and cost-cutting seems to be your main focus, instead of conducting research and development to develop your own product, or say it even hinders you from coming up with a new marketable product, then it becomes problematic. Consumers would start getting attracted by newer brands with better products and would put their focus elsewhere, even if your brand has already been established for decades. Food products manufactured by small startups start appearing on the store shelves and begin taking up the space that you once occupied. An example of this is the recent surge in demand for plant-based foods, which more and more consumers have been looking into for environmental and health purposes. Kraft Heinz faced scrutiny and criticism from its investors in 2019 for failing to lay out a solid plan to tackle the growing demand for plant-based protein, when many of its competitors have already started developing and marketing products of their own. In 2014, before merging with H.J. Heinz, Kraft had reportedly spent $149 million for research and development on the market and its products. That number should have increased with the merger. Instead, Kraft Heinz had only spent a total of $93 million in research and development, which makes you think, what could have happened if they focused more of their resources in bettering current products and coming up with new household staples? Would things be better than they are today? In a world where consumers have ever-changing demands and tastes, one of the most important things that companies must do is change and adapt in order to stay in the game. Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher, was famously quoted for saying, "The only thing constant in life is change." As the world constantly shifts and evolves, it is up to us to keep up and do the same. What are your thoughts on why the Kraft Heinz merger crashed? What would you have done if you were working for the company during its tumultuous years? Let's talk about it in the comments section below. I'll respond to all of you who comment within the first hour. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other video on what happened to General Electric, to see why its stocks dramatically dropped and how it weathered the last 5 years. Stay tuned, stay educated.